think most of us live quiet lives of loneliness. I think we live quiet lives of loneliness. We cover it up by things like busyness. Stay busy, don't think about it. We cover it up by thinking, well, this is normal. This is how well, I've always felt this way, so it's the way it's supposed to be, right? And yet, you really have someone in your life that you can deeply share everything that's happening in your heart, be utterly vulnerable with, and be able to know that they love you anyhow. You can share your joys and your griefs and your triumphs. A real heart-to-heart connection. Few have that. And they certainly don't have it as many as they'd like. So we numb it with things like work, some with addictions. Some do it with pretending. See, I'm happy. Yeah. You cover it up and you try to laugh, but inside you're really not. Sometimes it's with nostalgia and the grasping for those days when you were happier. Underneath all of it is this ache of being known and loved and just connecting. It's still there. And it's there because that's how you were made. We were made for relationship with each other and with God. It goes all the way back to Genesis 2 as we started the series. That's how you were designed. We were designed, I was designed to not have these barriers, both ones that I say, no, don't get too close to me, but also just this fear of connecting with other people. We weren't made for that. We were made to connect with human beings because in the beginning, God made man, and he was like, no, he needs people. So he brings Eve, and together they were meant to live and relate deeply with God, and we've lost that. And God wants it with you. And so he moved heaven to earth to get you. To be in a relationship with you. And not this intellectual one, no. One where the deepest part of you connects with the deepest part of God, and there's this deep back and forth of you knowing him and him knowing you and each other. And that's why he came, to restore that relationship that we've lost, both individually and as humanity. That's what I'm going to help you see in the text today. We read through it, and then we're going to dive in. But before we do, let me pray. Heavenly Father, I want to ask that you would help me to communicate clearly and accurately what is said in your word. I pray that you would open our hearts to hear your word. Hear the longing in your heart for their hearts, for my heart. Help us to understand what you've written, and whatever I've prepared to say, may it be from you. Whatever is not from me, may I either not, that is from me and not from you. I pray, Jesus, that you would help me to not say it, or that it's at least not remembered. But everything that is from you, may that be like a lightning bolt through our hearts, communicating your love for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, verse 12. But to all who did receive him, who who believed in his name, he, this is Jesus, by the way, or the Word, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. Now, there's a whole lot I could have said here, but I'm just trying to get the context for verse 14. This verse. And the Word became flesh and dwelled among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness about him and cried out, "This it was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks before me because he was before me.' For from his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the only God, who is at the Father's side. He has made him known." Let's go back to verse 14. Here's the first phrase I want us to look at. The Word became flesh. Now, if we look carefully at the word, you go back to verse 1, it's clear who he is. He is God. He is the transcendent God. He is the creator. He is both, on one hand, not all of who God is, but he is not lesser than the Father. There's this thing called the Trinity, and we've talked about that just a couple of months ago as we walked through some basic information about what the Christians believe. That on one hand, there is an eternal Word, the second person of the Trinity. Jesus didn't take on divinity when he was born or at his baptism. No, he has always been eternal. He's always been God. But as we'll see in a second, he adds something when he comes as a baby. But the first part, this idea of the Word, it connects with things like creation, Genesis 1:1. And God spoke. There was a word at the beginning, and the world leapt into being. It's the idea that John's pointing at when he's talking about the prophets. And he says, "The word of the Lord came to me and said." Jesus comes and communicates with the prophets and speaks through the prophets. He's God's revelation. He's the one who is the creator. He is divine in all the fullness that means. He is also flesh. And Paul uses an unusual term here. He doesn't say man. He doesn't say body. He uses a much more earthy word, flesh. It's the idea here of connecting with everything that's vulnerable about being a human being. It's the idea of being able to be hurt and needy, tired and hungry and wounded. And Jesus gets all of that. It's not just a body, like a perfect body. He becomes you, like you, without sin. We don't sometimes think about the fact that Jesus had to eat. And if he had to eat, he had to do the other part of it too. Right? And if he ate a bad piece of chicken, that would happen too. You understand what I'm getting at? All of the stuff that we live with he had body odor, my dear people. That's the idea. And so John is marrying this God who had enjoyed eternity in perfect glory in the presence of the angels, became, added our creatureness. He became both. The Christian doctrine is that he is 100% divine and human. Not a little bit of both, not 50-50, no, 100-100. Which means he's also human without sin. But he's also God that gets you fully, your experience as a human being. He had to be fed as a baby. He stubbed his toe in the night. All of that, he gets both of it. And this is a big deal. And it's not the core of my sermon, but you do need to understand this idea that Jesus is eternally fully God and fully human gets at the core of almost every false religion. They get it wrong on this. They can say, I believe in Jesus. What Jesus are you talking about? They will usually lessen or increase one or the other. Yeah, I believe in Jesus, but he was not fully God. Gee, I believe in God, but why would he was kind of not really human. He was like this angelic being. No. He's not equal with Satan. Satan's not his brother. He is the creator of all things. So you need to, this is just one of those things. This is why the church fought and worked hard to articulate carefully, as the writers of Scriptures does, that Jesus is fully God, fully man. And he becomes human at this moment, in the most decisive moment in all of human history, when God enters into this world. He becomes human. And then what does he do? He makes his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son. And there is a couple of things here. There's three things here I want us to see here. That's really much bigger than perhaps we realize. The first one is this word dwelling. On one hand, it means house, living. But it technically is the word tabernacle. That, based on some of the things we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, should help ring some bells. That is what was called when they came out of Egypt and they were wandering around in the desert, and God made this tent for him to dwell, to live in amongst the people of God. He tabernacled. He camped with them. That's this word, and you are meant to connect that. Like in Exodus, he says, build me a tabernacle that I might dwell with them. I might live my life with them. Which, as we talked about, connects to in two different directions. It goes forward to like Solomon building the temple, but it also goes backwards, talking about how we are meant to live with God in Genesis 2. How the tabernacle and the temple point us back to those days in which we, before the fall, humanity lived with God. We had that relationship with him all the time. He came to dwell with us. But there's also this glory piece. And I want to remind you what we talked about last week about how Solomon, having built the temple, he prays, and remember as we read in 2 Chronicles 7, when Solomon finished praying, fire came down from heaven, consumed the burnt offerings, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. Remember that? It's this glorious moment where God says, I'm pleased with this house you've built, and I'm going to put my presence there. I'm going to live there. And what happened after that? Remember, the kings continued to fall away and do bad things, and God eventually said, okay, you're done. I'm kicking you out of the land. And Ezekiel, at that time, when the last of the nation was kicked off into Babylon, he had a vision of the glory of the Lord leaving that temple. He says it like this in Ezekiel 10. Then the glory of the Lord departed over the threshold of the temple. He's seeing this vision. Here he's in Babylon. He's looking back west at the temple, and he sees God's glory, God's presence leave the temple. And as we talked about last week, it never came back, did it? There's no recorded time in the rest of Israel history. They rebuilt the temple, but God's glory never came. And so what's happening here is this moment where John is saying, the glory has returned. But it's not in a building. It's in a person. And Ezekiel saw that, right? He promised later on that God said to him, my dwelling place will be with them, and I will be their God, and there will be my people. There's coming a day where I will come back and I will dwell with my people. There's these promises, or Zechariah 2:10, sing, rejoice. Man, you should be super happy about this. Why, O daughter of Zion? For behold, I will come and I will dwell in their midst again. There's this promise that did not happen after the exile, did not happen in those 400 years of silence. And then Jesus comes. Those skies light up, Luke 2, and suddenly right there, John says, that's it. The glory of the Lord has come again. He made his dwelling among us, just as Ezekiel, just as Zechariah promised. And we have seen his glory. It's the restoration. It hints at the restoration of being in a right relationship with God again. It hints at this idea of one day, finally, God will live with his people, which he has not for a long time. And then we have the next phrase here, the one and only Son. It's a very complicated word, and it's been translated multiple ways. Here it's the one and only Son. I would prefer to say it more like the unique or one and only, the specific Son. It's not just that he is a Son of God. There's none like this one. There's none like this one. There are other sons of God, yes. We can see them in Job chapter 1, Psalm 89. There's other sons of God, spiritual beings who have a relationship with God, but there is none like this one. We are called children of God, verse 12 and 13. There's none like this one. And this here speaks in two different directions at the same time. The first one is it speaks to temporal powers, human powers, like emperors who called themselves sons of God. This is saying, yeah, you may call yourself a God, but there's one unique. There is one above all other kings and queens of this world, all other Caesars. That's Jesus. There's one Lord. It also speaks in terms of David. Because as you recall in 2 Samuel 7, there was this promise that there's coming to be a son from the line of David. This is the one and only son, not Solomon, not any of the other kings. This son is the unique son. So on a human level, there's this sense of you are great. He is greater than Caesar. He is the one, the son of David we have been waiting for. And it is also this sense on a spiritual level that he is not just like an angel. He is God in the flesh. He's the one and only Son. He's Lord of, another way of you could say this in a different language is he is Lord of lords and King of kings. The unique promised Son of David. And so you put these three together and you have God coming to dwell in his presence, and it's in a person who is King of kings and Lord of lords, because there is none like him. He is the Word made flesh. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We have seen his glory as of the only Son from the Father, the only Son from the Father. And this person, this unique person, is full of grace and truth. Full of grace and truth. He's filled to the brim of these things. Filled to the brim of truth and grace. It's like a cup that flows over and over. It can't contain it. But what is this grace and truth? It tells us, if we look at it in the context, we go forward a little bit more. John bore witness to him, cries out, "This is he who is, I said, comes before me," speaking to his the only one and only Son. The rank, he's talking about his rank. He's greater than all, right? And from his fullness, the fullness of what? The fullness of his grace and truth. You and I have received grace upon grace. It's like the seas of the waves of the sea crashing over and over. It's this abundant grace, goodness of God flowing to you, unendingly so. Grace upon grace upon grace. Out of his grace, out of the truth of who he is, we get grace. But what is that grace? Again, look at it in context. Go back to verse 12. The grace is what he gives us is the ability to be his children. To be children of God. So if you look through this, to all who received him, to those who believed in him, those who received him as the Word made flesh, gave the ability, the power, the capacity to be children of God. And just so we're clear, it's not children who are just simply biologically so. That's not what we're talking about here, or blood, or just even the human beings. No. More of human weakness and frailty, the flesh. No. God wanted you. God chose to say, I want you to be my child. I want to be in a relationship with you. And so, the Word became flesh. We've seen his glory. So it goes like this. So from his fullness, we've received grace upon it. Why? Because what the law could not do, the grace of God did. So that we will have an intimate knowledge of God that only Jesus can give. No one has ever seen God. No one has had a face-to-face relationship with God. But only God, the Word, the one who is both man and God, the Word became flesh, who's at the Father's side, has made him known. And this phrase means more than it seems. That at his side, or face to face, or in his bosom, depending on your translation. I want to give you a visual image because that's what it's doing. There's a physical image metaphor that's being described. It's the idea, non-sexually, of being laying in a bed together with your head on their chest. It's what kind of a close relationship must you have with someone to be able to do this on their chest? That's what this is saying. The most intimate possible relationship. Again, not sexual. I'm saying just deep heart to heart. That's what's being described here. Jesus has that. And out of that kind of a relationship, he makes him known to you. Which is what it means to be a child of God. So let me put it all together. So Jesus gives us the authority to become children of God. The ability. Verses 12 through 13. How does he do that? He does that becoming flesh, full of grace, full of truth, and from that fullness, from that fullness of him, he gives us grace. What is that? And then that grace is something that the law, what our human abilities to do, being work hard, trying to obey the right, keep off the grass, being keep the Ten Commandments, all of that. We can't do that, but he can. He makes him known to us, which is what? It's the same thing that John says later in verse 3 of John 17. This is eternal life, that you know you. This is Christianity. We get to be children of God, that is, know him, have this kind of relationship that God has with the Son, with us, through the grace given to us because Jesus became a human being. He brings heaven to earth. He brings heaven to earth. Look at that text again, all the way through. Children. What is that about? See the relation? That's all about relationship. Right? You see that? To all who received him, he gave the right to have a deep relationship. Because it's not just not friends, not acquaintances, not know about. No. Not that kind of intellectual. No. Have a relationship with God. Right? Out of a specific, unique relationship that Jesus has with God through his grace. And look at this, and even going back to that, dwelling. That's all about relationship, about connecting, living deeply, right? So that we would have this. Relationship. It's all, we would have heaven at earth. I don't think we understand how deeply God wants to have you. He wants you. And not just you partially, and we spend our lives doing this. Going, yeah, I love you, God, but don't come too close. He's like, I'm not going to put up with that. No. He's going to, we sing a song. He's pushing aside with violent mercy, breaking our barriers because he wants you. We hide. Don't hide. I know it's terrifying. God is, if I may use the word, hungry for your heart. Hungry not because he lacks anything, not because he needs you. No. It's not this impulsive thing. No, he wants you because he loves you so deeply. You are so precious to him that he can't live without you. Not because he can't, he just won't allow himself to not have you in eternity with him. Both us collectively, but you individually. Jesus says he calls his sheep by name. On one hand, our salvation is global and historical and social, yes, but it is also incredibly deeply personal. So that we can have the relationship with God. So here's the thing. What is Christmas? It is about God moving heaven to earth to spend eternity with you. And I want to encourage you this year to really work hard at dropping the barriers you put with God. I get it. I hide from him too. What if he doesn't like me? What if he says something I don't really want to hear from him? Right? I mean, there's so many reasons. Do you know how and the best way to practice connecting with God is to connect with another human being who is made in the image of God. That's why I encourage you to try to get deep, close relationships with at least one person. Let me share a very practical way that I'm doing that this Christmas. I have asked my boys and my wife, and I'm going to do it too, is to, instead of just giving presents this year, we're going to take a Christmas card and fill, you know how you open it up and one side's fully blank, to fill the whole thing and just say how I feel about you. What do I feel when I think about you? Open your heart. Share the deepest parts of what you really feel, but you never feel like you could actually say. Or maybe you assume they know. No, don't assume they know. Share it. Connect with them. And it's terrifying and it's hard work. But if you can do it with a human being, you can do it with God. And if you can't do it with a human being, maybe be really blunt. You can't do it with God, who's made in his image. People are made in his image. And if you run from people, you run from God. Christmas is about relationship, my dear people. Let's make 2026 about relationships too. Let's pray. Lord, I want to ask for you to give us spiritual boldness to connect with other human beings this Christmas. If it's not a letter, if nothing else, with our spouse, taking a moment, or our best friend and taking a moment and looking them in their eyes and taking 30 seconds to really open our hearts to them and say how I feel about you. And for us guys, that's so hard to say things like, I love you, and you're precious to me, and I value you. But Lord, give us a boldness to do it. And then bless the efforts, whatever effort it is. May they see the fruit of not just that in the relationship on a human level, but the fruits of that in a way with you. And again, as I started the whole service, I pray you'd give us hope that one day we will have that joy and that peace and the deep soul satisfaction of living not only with you, but with all of your children in eternity. Come quickly, Lord.